Alright, fresh level 60 budget raiding part 2. This time it's Libero Ultra. So overall, it's the same Chillets and the same Ragnarhawks from part 1, but we are switching out all the Jignesses for the legendary pals. I assume you know where to get those legendary pals. I didn't include a part showing where they are. You can see them on the map. They're the alpha bosses. I put my spawns on ×3 and did a lap and caught 3 of each. And then I took 3 extra Necromus instead of Palladius, just because Palladius is a bit weak to Libero. They will probably die in the first dark attack. They do have quite good defense. You could do this with just the Palladius, but I suggest you swap it for another extra 3 Necromus. So in this little part here that I'm showing, I am using the Palworld strategy, but you will see soon when it cuts that Libero deals a lot of damage with flame walls to structures. Overall, it works to use the Palpod strategy. I hope you can see there's a bed in the background there, a Palpod. He uses flame walls and destroys all the beds. It might be hard to see because they're behind all the pals, but that's the skill that destroys beds. So I don't suggest you use Palpods for Libero, she will destroy them. This is the overall way that I did it instead, just 15 pals. And keep in mind, in this attempt here, I wasn't using the correct skills on some of the pals. It was more to see how the hitbox worked. So you will see that stuff like Meteor Rain, Double Blizzard Spike, they tend to miss the hitbox a lot. So the skills I suggest that you use for this is, for Jet Dragon you want Beam Slicer, then his exclusive skill, Beam Comet, and then just Seed Mine or Flare Storm. Again, Seed Mine and Flare Storm are purchased from merchants at Fisherman's Point and Dune Shelter. They're not something you have to grind for. You just go and buy 15 of those. And then on the Frostallions, you probably want Crystal Wing, Seed Mine, Flare Storm. I think I had Double Blizzard Spike in this one, but it just missed a lot. And for Necromus, it's Flare Storm and Seed Mine as well. Same with Frostallion. Frostallion, you probably want Crystal Wing as well. I mean, Frostallion Knocked, which is a legend now that you can catch on Faybreak. So I think I'm using Stone Beat on my Necromus in this video. I suggest you swap that for his exclusive skill. I forget the name, but the one where he's rushing around with his little spears. Just because Crystal Wing and that Necromus skill makes the pals spread out more, which is very good against Libero. If she does use Nightmare Bloom, she might just target this one single Frostallion standing pretty far away from the party. So in general for raids, I like all the mobility skills that make pals spread out. Stuff like Phalaris, Crystal Wing is mentioned, all these dash skills. I feel like spreading the pals out is worth more than just doing the best DPS skill. You can see it's a lot of Seed Mines, a lot of Flare Storms. Seed Mine has the benefit that when she gets rooted, the big entangling roots, she takes double damage from fire. And Flare Storm just seems to do good damage against Libero. Due to her weird hitbox, her floaty little hitbox, it does a lot of damage. And then it's also super effective in phase 2 for those pals that survive that far. Jet Dragon is weak to phase 2, so he's mostly there as a sort of DPS nuker in the first phase. And that's why I keep 5 Chillets for this as well. You could use Gobfins, it would be viable, but just for this attempt here, these are like level 37, 38 Chillets. I didn't level them up, they're just fresh caught. So they do die to most of her attacks. So then I just like having 5 Chillets to switch between. Lets you not play as defensive, which is a lot of DPS. But the challenge for most of these no breeding raid boss kills that is the part of this series will be the DPS test, managing to kill the boss before 10 minutes passes. So overall, just not having to play safe is a big boost to DPS. Against Rio and Libero, when you are level 60, you have quite high defense, so they don't really deal that much damage to you. You can play pretty aggressive and sacrifice the Chillets. Then I am using the maxed research. I suggest you do that as well. It was something I forgot to mention in part 1. It's the 18% attack and defense bonus for pals that are assigned to the base. I really suggest that's something you go for as soon as you can before you start raiding. 18% buffs to stats, that's only 2% less than a rank 0 versus a rank 4 pal. It's quite a lot of stats. It means that like every 5 pal you add becomes like an extra pal, so you get 6 pals out of 5-ish. Not like perfect math, but you get the point. Do the research. So for this fight in general, you will see that, as I mentioned, I'm not using the ideal skills. I don't think Meteor Rain did any damage, and I think Double Blizzard Spike misses. As long as she's not stunned, those skills miss. Beam Slicer is good, and Jetragon learns Beam Slicer naturally now, which is quite nice. And then you might find Libero doing something like this. I find that this is specific to this base. I haven't seen her do it in other bases. I think it's just the weird like terrain for the beach. Sometimes she just attacks like nothing underground. But it doesn't happen that often. Usually she's going for the pal box if you go too far away. So overall, you will see that pals are dropping off. That's why it, like, if you want to prep a little bit longer, you might spend the time either just doing 15 Necromus or 15 Jetragons to get her to phase 2 as quickly as possible. You can also do some little pal swaps, like switching to Frostallion for part 2 because she resists the ice attacks. I think you could see there's some Double Blizzard Spikes missing depending on how she's standing, Libero. So there are some options with how you do this, but this seemed to work fine. Just putting spawns on 3 and taking a lap to each of the legends, catching them, giving them Seed Mine or Flare Storm and putting them in the base. And then during phase 2, since you're using the Chillet Ragnarok build, using Ragnarok in phase 2 is pretty easy to dodge her attacks. So you want to be aiming for her head as well. It can be a little bit tricky. She keeps turning upside down and then the right way up again. But overall, it's a big DPS benefit. You can also see some pals stuck in the rocks to the left there. That tends to happen in this base. You can just reset them in the pal box. But I was kind of hoping that they would be a distraction for her. Eventually she might target them instead. And their DPS isn't great. Like, when you are doing this zero breeding style, this kind of setup that this whole series is about, I think you'll find that the base pals are mostly there to distract the raid boss, so that you can actually focus on just doing pure damage instead of dodging. Since you're doing, I guess that's about 9,000 damage per reload with this. I don't think the base pals are getting quite close to that DPS without condensing and souls. And as mentioned, if you didn't watch part 1, what I said there is that this is not like the tactic I suggest for you to use. It's more about this is the minimum requirement that I suggest, but it is very easy for you to go and catch a little bit of extra chillets, maybe give them some Excel training scrolls. Same thing with Ragnarok. Like, there's a lot of very low effort things you can do to make this a lot easier. This is in full white gear as well, so just any kind of schematic from the oil rigs will make this easier. Souls, as I mentioned, just condensing them to 1 or 2 stars, getting better armor, giving them skills from skill fruit trees. Like, if you'd given all these pals Beam Slicer and Airblade and Lightning Streak, it would have been a lot more damage. But I don't want to do that to waste like skill fruits and stuff on these pals that are not bred for passives. These are just fresh caught legends. And it's quite nice to use the fresh caught legends for this kind of tactic, because they always have the legend passive. So they will automatically, since they are legendary pals, they already have very good base stats. And then it doesn't hurt that they spawn with legend, giving them 20% attack and defense. Then they also get their little Lord of the Underworld and stuff like that if you are using those elements. So something like Frostallion and Jetragon using their Ice and Dragon attacks in this fight will get a little bit of a boost. So it just adds up compared to the part 1 strategy with just Jormuntide Ignis. Or Jormuntide. People have been commenting that I've been pronouncing it weird. But it's, I might say Jormuntide, I might say Jormuntide. We'll see which one ends up sticking. I probably should have watched like a Pocket Peer video on how they pronounce all the pals, because I have no idea most of the names. Like, is it Anubis or Anubis or whatever. We'll see how the pronunciation goes. But yeah, you can see when she uses this skill, you just move backwards to outrange it. Pretty easy headshots for a while there. Most of her skills are pretty easy to dodge once you've done the fight a few times. You just want to be careful with managing the stamina on your Ragnarok. running out of stamina is a pretty good way of getting the pal killed. I feel like that dark laser skill might be the most dangerous one for your pals. Most of the other ones can be dodged by just like moving sideways and stuff. But dark laser seems, if you're in range of it, it does hit pretty hard and pretty, like, what do you say, the turn rate on it seems pretty high. It keeps following you. If you do get like hit by the first thing, it might stagger the pal. And Diamond Rain as well, that's the one skill I suggest that you probably don't want to be shooting during. Like, don't push your luck during Diamond Rain. There's another Dark Laser. It's pretty hard to dodge, but Diamond Rain, just, you have some time on the timer to just run. Don't stop and shoot. If your Ragnarok gets hit by one Diamond Rain, it will probably get hit by more Diamond Rains. So that's one you don't want to risk. I do a little bit of risky stuff, but that's because I'm fighting with the timer right now. And you will see that it is running out, like time is running out. But as well, you just give your pals some souls. You can always reset those souls as well. This is just me showing what is possible, not exactly what I suggest that you do. I do suggest you catch these legends as the budget build, but just give them some souls and better fruits and use non-white gear. It's a good way to make this fight a lot easier. So you want to do these fights just to get your first Ivy fruits, probably to start breeding your real raid army. So this is just kind of a budget build before you start breeding those perfects. So yeah, Libero done with 0 breeding or condensing or grinding of any kind, just white gear. And in this video itself, not ideal skills. I suggest you don't use double blizzard spike and meteor rain at least. And probably stone beat didn't do that much. You probably want to use Necromus exclusive skill instead, just for the repositioning. And I don't suggest pal pods against Libero. She will destroy those beds and cost you some hexalite. This seems to work fine. If I forgot to say anything, just leave a comment. So thanks for watching.